Kia ora koutou. No mai haramai ki tēnei wā kōrero. Welcome to our 10s Wednesday webinar, AI in the Classroom, Play, Learn, Grow with Donna Golightly. Donna has been involved in education for more than 30 years, but considers herself to still be learning. Her passion is helping others to use technology in a creative, authentic, and relevant way. She is a Google certified trainer, a Google innovator, an Apple professional learning specialist, and an Apple learning coach. She has spent many years working with teachers across New Zealand and abroad to become more confident and competent with their meaningful use of digital tools. She is currently working as a lead digital coach and classroom teacher in a large independent school in Auckland, New Zealand. Donna is a member of the Working Party within her own school, set up to explore AI and its potentials and pitfalls. She has shared widely on this topic within education circles, both in New Zealand and Australia. Okay, I will do the karakia, and then I'm very, very excited to be able to hand it over to Donna. Mauri ora kia mātou, arahina mātou ia mātou mahi, kimihia he huarahi mo te kaupapa o te mātou rangahangarau, āwhina atu, āwhina mai, te pou e here nei ia mātou, hui e, tai ki e. Okay, so I will stop sharing and hand the floor over to you, Donna Golightly.
Awesome, thank you. I will just share my screen and let me know if you are seeing our plan for today. Oops, I'm just going to come back a couple of slides. So just give me a nod, Ruth, if you can see my screen so we can check. Awesome. Welcome everyone to AI in the Classroom. We're going to do some play, some learn, and some grow. Before we start, tēnā koutou kua hui mai nei, e mihi ana ki ngā mana whenua, ko Donu toka ingoa, no te arawa ahau. E mahi ana o hai ke ako, ki Kristen Kura, no rewa, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you all for coming today. I understand how busy it is when you've been teaching all day to then jump into a webinar. So thank you so much. We do appreciate having you here. And this is what we're going to be having a little look at today. So the plan is, this is plan A. It could easily go to plan B. And while you're just having a quick look over this, so we're going to be thinking about what is AI really? What do we need to consider before we use it? What AI do we already have? How can we start using it, and where do we get started? We're going to have a little bit of play, and we're also going to have a look at some AI tools that could be helpful for us. So just so we know where to pitch today's session, pop in the chat a 1, a 2, or a 3. 1 if you are a newbie into AI and you haven't really had time to investigate it. 2 if you've done a little bit of a play, but you are just kind of experimenting. And 3 if you are a great user, you've explored it, you use it a lot, and you're really confident with it. I'll just give you a minute to pop a 1, a 2, or a 3 into the chat. And what are we seeing, Ruth? Are we seeing lots of 1s, lots of 2s, lots of 3, or a mix? Some 1s, some 2s. So some people getting started and some people that are having a little bit of an explore. Some 2s. So while we'll do that, you'll also notice on the bottom of the screen, there is a link that says rebrandly.ly/10AI. And now if you pop that into your, it's actually called your Omnibox, the URL bar, not the search bar, it will take you to a copy of these slides, and we'll also pop a link into the chat so you can grab it from there. But you'll be able to grab the slides as we go through, and you'll be able to access the links that we have. So just I'll give you a little bit more minute to grab that link. It is case sensitive, so the TENZAI do need to be capital letters. And we've popped in some 1s, some 2s coming through. So we're at the beginning stages, or we've had a little bit of an explore. Awesome. So hopefully we're going to have some fun this afternoon. I think a good place to start is to all be on the same page in terms of what do we consider to be artificial intelligence. The definition I've got here comes from the AI EDU page. Really awesome resources to check out if you just want to jot down AI EDU, but remember you do have the slides. And their definition is that it's a man-made system, such as a computer program, that exercises problem-solving or decision-making abilities normally associated with humans. So we're just going to go with that definition, but also thinking that a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today are generative AI, which is just a branch of AI. I know in my class, my kids kind of refer to all generative AI as just AI, and they're still making that distinction between the fact that actually AI has already existed and maybe some of the grammar checks that they're using, or maybe some of the automatic compose that they're already using, which is slightly different to the generative AI that they use when they want to create images. So this is the definition that we'll go with today. And before we start really having some fun and playing, I think it's important to consider the following things. AI is not new. It has actually been around since the 1950s. It's the generative AI, the chat GPT, that has exploded in the last year or so, but AI itself is not new. And when I asked our teachers, when did they think AI first appeared, we had a range of questions, but nobody really said beyond about 5 years ago. So it is interesting to think it's been part of our world since the 1950s. We've talked about generative AI being one type. I think it's really important to think about the intellectual rates of your students. So if you're thinking, how am I going to use AI to help me give feedback, which is one of the things that lots of teachers ask about, we do have to take a step back and ask who owns the intellectual right to that work that we might be about to feed into an AI tool. Our students do actually own the intellectual rights to their work. So unless we've had a conversation with them, and unless we have their direct permission, we should not be taking their work and putting it into an AI tool and asking it for feedback. That's just something for us to ponder on and think about in our practice. Be aware of AI bias and hallucinations. We had a great example where a friend came around and she wanted some poetry written by a New Zealand poet to do with a class that she was about to do some relieving in. So we plugged into an AI chatbot. Can you give us some poems from a New Zealand poet suitable for 10-year-old students? It threw back this great poem with the name of a New Zealand poet. And she said, great, this is awesome. I'm just going to take this and use it. And I said, no, wait. So then I put the same poem back in and said, tell me the author of this poem. And the response was, I don't know the author. I made it up. I couldn't find one by a New Zealand author, so I thought I would write one. So do just be aware that not everything it gives you back is accurate. So you do need to double check what it gives you, and also the bias that it comes from. So that's known as that hallucination, but also the bias that it comes from. So everything that AI is returning to us from the database of information that it's been fed. So who is feeding it that information, and from what, I guess, sometimes you could even think, what culture is that information coming from? And wherever it comes from is going to have a slight bias. So read it with your eyes open and be critical about that as well. It's not going away. It's here to stay. And I know that there are lots of teachers and people who want to dig their head in the sand and go, this is terrible. It's going to take over our jobs. But it's here. So we have to learn how to live with it and maximize it and be creative with it. We have to spend time to save time. I know a lot of our teachers will say to me, what's a website? Give me an AI tool. I just want it to save me time. I want it to do my planning. I want it to do my reporting. I want it to do my feedback. But it's not going to do that for us. You'll find the first time you put some prompts in, sometimes you'll spend more time rewording those prompts and going back and asking questions than if you just did it for yourself in the first place. It would have taken you less time. So ultimately, it can save us some time, but it's not the big time saver that we sort of seem to be having this idea of, that it's going to be the one thing that's going to save our time and make teaching amazing again. Like, just remember, we're going to have to spend some time to learn how to use it first before it's going to save us some time. And I've just linked a website at the bottom, the AI EDU site, because our students do need to understand it as well. So it is really important that we teach our students about AI, not just so that they understand how it works, but so that they can be critical with it and they can learn to use it ethically, because it's their generation that are going to grow up and it's probably going to have the biggest impact on them, more so than us. So it is really important that we teach them about it. And also there's coming up as a Day of AI. It's an Australian program, but it's amazing as well in terms of teaching your students how AI works, a couple of good resources. Before I move on from there, that's kind of like just a bit of a set the scene and things for us to think about. Are there any questions that have come up, Ruth, that we need to address before we move on?
I haven't. I've just seen a chat that I think Caitlin can sort out because we have a participant whose chat is disabled, and we have another 3 in our audience.
Okay.
Yeah, but no questions other than that.
Perfect. Let's move on. All right. Just really quickly, know your school policy. So your school should have a policy on what you can and can't do with AI, how your school would like your staff and your teachers to use AI. And some schools have gone so far as to saying what you can and can't use it for. If your school doesn't have a policy, this Ministry of Education banner here image is actually linked for you. So it will link you out. If you just click on the image, it'll pop up a link, and that link will take you to the Ministry of Education's page that has some advice from them around how AI should be used in kura, and it has some examples and some exemplars of what schools are doing. So it could even be something that you discuss with your senior leadership team if you're not sure if your school has a policy. All righty, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. So how can we use AI? One of the things that I was thinking about when I was putting this together is we could do, there's a site called Curapod, which is an AI site. It's very interactive with your students. It has some really cool bots on it. It'll do brain breaks. It'll do lots of fun things. And I thought, great, we'll do an intro with that, except it's blocked on our school website. So it was like, okay, we can't use that. Now, the reason that it's blocked, I feel very lucky, is that we do have an AI team and we have a digital team, and they go through the terms and conditions and the privacy policies and what happens with your data when you plug it into the sites, and they check all that for us. And they weren't very happy with some of the privacy statements within Curapod. So until they can be more certain that our data is safe when we use that tool, currently we're not able to use it. So what I did was went back to Google Forms. Great tool. It's collaborative. We can all work on it. But I used AI to create the content. So my default AI tool to go to is Gemini, which is Google's AI site. So yes, there's ChatGPT. I'm at the stage where I'm not prepared to pay money for something that's still developing. And I can do very much the same kind of things free on another tool. And I've found that the more I use one tool, the better I get with using it. If I chop and change and use lots of different tools, the prompts don't always work exactly the same on each tool. I kind of get the same stuff back, but with Gemini, I've kind of learnt how to prompt it, and it's learnt what I want it to give me. So my default is to go to Gemini, which is linked for you, and I asked it to write the story for me. Now, I asked it to write me a bit of a fun story to explain what AI is in a fun, fictional way that you might be able to use with your students at school. Then I took that story and I put it into Conquer. So any of these words down the bottom here are linked to the tool for you. And it created the quiz for me, and it put it automatically into the Google form. I didn't have to copy and paste it. It just created a Google form for me. And then I used Poll Everywhere to do the word cloud. So if you click on the image, if you have the slide deck open in front of you. So you will need to go to a different tab from what you've got the webinar on. So you might feel a little bit funny having the webinar open on one tab and a Google form open on the other. But if you're able to do that, and if you click on the image, it will take you straight there. And this is what the form looks like. I'll just move this out of the way. So it looks like this. Here we go. So it asks you for your name, and you don't have to give me your real name. You can just give me your husband's name, your wife's name, your child's name, your neighbor's name. It doesn't really matter. But I get into the habit of putting name because you'll notice up here that it's wants to know my email because it wants to know that I'm in a Google account, but I'm not collecting those emails. So when it comes through from the students, if they haven't put their name, I've got no idea whose work it is. So I've just got into the habit of always starting my forms with name. Now, another reason why I use Gemini, and I only use the free version, is because it will create an image for me as well. I don't have to go to a different tool to create the image. So you'll see, here's the modern tale of AI that Gemini wrote for me. Now, it gave me, I'll admit, pretty twee characters, Princess Penelope, Sparky, and I think there's another character in there with a pretty twee name. And I could have gone back and I could have suggested other names for it, but I was on a bit of a time restraint when I did this. So it's written the story for me. I'm not going to read it for you. If you've got access to the form, you can go through and read it. It took Gemini less than a minute to write the story for me. I went back twice and asked it to make a change. And another reason that I like Gemini is because I can highlight some of the information and change just one part of it. I don't have to change the whole lot. We'll jump into Gemini and I'll show you that in a minute. And so then I asked Gemini to create me a cute image of a green dragon drinking a cup of coffee. And it created 3 images for me, and I chose this one. And the question was created by Conker. So what was the name of Princess Penelope's clockwork dragon? And it threw up the options for me. I didn't have to make that up myself. Then it asked, what did Princess Penelope fill Sparky with beside gears and springs? And hopefully we're going to get data. And then what did it need besides that, according to the story, which is algorithm. So that's where it was bringing in those technical words connected to AI, but it gives you a bit of a fun way to have that conversation with your students. And that's the main thing they need to understand about AI, is that it's a whole lot of data that's fed by algorithms that throws you out the result. And then I like to link an activity at the end, so the forms aren't just question answer for the kids. And so if you have an option to this, and maybe Ruth, you might drop the link just to this in the chat, but it's going to bring you to poll everywhere. Now skip, just go skip for now. If you're still with us, skip for now. And it asks you what comes to mind when you think about AI. So if you just, Ruth, have you got the link, managed to follow that thread through, Ruth, to get that link to poll everywhere? Brilliant. And if you are in the slide deck, you can also come to the next slide and you can just access it. It's got the link there for you as well. Now, that is quite a lengthy process of what I've gone through there, but that took me, using AI, 10 minutes to put that together. So when we're talking about the fact that it's not always going to save you time, once you get used to it. So it took me a couple of minutes with Gemini to write the story. It took me maybe 3 minutes to open Conker, paste the story in. Look at this there. We're getting some content coming through. You can very quickly create some interactive, fun activities for your students to do. And with Poll Everywhere, again, I'm only using the free version. I hesitate to say this aloud, but I do have less than 25 students in my class. And the free Poll Everywhere lets you have 25 different people enter at any one time. You can have as many questions as you want, but you can only have 25 respondents. So it does work for me in my class. And being a Google Workspace school, this is in my slide. It does have a Chrome add-on, and I can put it straight into my slides, and the students can see the responses there. So you can see that when people think about AI, they think about peas and fried rice, which is really interesting. They think about generating questions. Yeah, jobs. It's definitely impacting our jobs. It's clearly afternoon tea time and people are hungry. And you can see as people are throwing in their ideas that this poll everywhere is giving us some information that we can then discuss with our students. Definitely a time saver, definitely critical thinking, analyzing. There's some really great words in there that you could pull apart. So you could even do an activity like that with your students, get them to fill it in. What does AI mean to them? How do they think they're going to use it? And you can see what you get back. So this is the word cloud option in poll everywhere that is giving us this back. You can see data is getting bigger because more people are putting that word in. So that's just a fun little activity to get us started, a little bit of interactiveness to keep us awake on a Wednesday afternoon. I'll leave that open and you can keep adding to that and we can come back at the end and you can see that's just in my slide deck, which is really cool. It'll come through in a minute. There we go. As I was preparing this, something else I did. So talking about Gemini, I went to Gemini and I said, my prompt is at the top. You're preparing a workshop for teachers on AI. So I told it what you were doing. I gave it the level, elementary school. I said I wanted a simple and easy timeline to understand the history of the development of AI. Now, it does matter the order of the words that you put in your prompt. So the words that are earlier in your prompt will receive more attention than the words that follow later on in your prompt, if that makes sense. And if I just click on this and I just go to Gemini, so this is gemini.google.com. It's free. You may or may not have it in your school account. There is a Gemini workspace version and an open version. So I'm in my personal account. I'm not in a workspace account. If I was in my school account, there are slightly different tools in Gemini workspace, and the privacy and security is actually tighter in workspace than it is in your personal account. Your school may or may not have it turned on. You'll know if you can access it on your school account, it's turned on. It is free if you have a personal account. I like it for a couple of reasons. It keeps my chats. So here's my story here. I can go back to that prompt that I gave it and I can see here are all the images that it threw me out of my cute dragons. And then I can just download the one that I wanted. Here's the one that it gave me for data. It asks me if I want to generate more each time. And then what I can do is I asked it for some word cloud suggestions. It didn't give me poll everywhere. I found that somewhere else. But what you can do is if I highlight that, notice that the magic pencil is coming up here. So if I only want to change or play with part of it, I can highlight it, click on my modify, and I can make that shorter, longer, or I can remove that part. So if I go longer, it's only going to take the phrase that I've highlighted and it's going to make that phrase longer. So you can see how it's just pulled up some more information and expanded on that. So I like the fact that I can go in and change my whole prompt or just part of it. Down the bottom with Gemini here, I can rate it. And this is why I think personally, this is my own opinion, it's good to stick to one tool because I can say, yep, this was a good response. And it learns what I'm liking and what I'm not. Whereas if I'm chopping and changing tools all the time, I'm not literally building up a rapport with my little AI friend here. I can click on my modified responses. And if I haven't selected part of it, it will do this to my whole prompt, my whole response. So it'll make the whole thing longer or the whole thing more simple. Or it might change the tone and make it more of a casual tone. Or I can make it more of a professional tone. So there's lots of different things that you can do. I can even ask it to ask me a question. So I could type in the prompt down here and say, is there any more information that you need from me? And it will come back and tell me if it needs some more information. And again, because I'm in the Google Workspace, I can export it straight to a Google Doc, and it drops all the information into that Google Doc for me. So by just sticking to that one tool, you get to learn how that tool goes. The other really awesome thing with Gemini is that it gives me 3 prompts. This is a terrible prompt, but I'm just going to do a quick one. Let's say write a short story about, whoops. And great thing is it actually doesn't worry if you do spelling mistakes. But if I just go write a short story about coffee, you can see it's writing me a story about coffee. I didn't give it a length. I didn't tell it how long, what level or anything. But Gemini has 3 drafts. So then I can go through and it's given me 3 options. So it's actually written 3 different stories in that time. And I can go through and choose the one I want. So this is a quick little why I use Gemini, and you can see there some of the ways that I have used it. All right, moving on. Some of the tips and tricks that I've given to our staff are things like adapt your prompts. So learn the art of prompt writing. Don't just put the first thing in. And I've linked here a couple of good examples for you that you can go back to later on if prompt writing is something that you want to have a little bit of practice at. But just know that the first response won't always be the best one. Remix and repurpose. So don't always reinvent the wheel. Reuse those prompts and change your keywords. Transform your workflow. Start with one thing. I think it's like anything else. If it's new to you, it can be very overwhelming. So start with one area and say, what is the one thing that I'm going to start to try and do? And it might just be find you a resource. It might be suggest something that you could include in a lesson. It could even be, I've only got in my fridge potatoes, beans, and chicken. Suggest a recipe I could cook with them. And you'll be amazed at what it will actually come up with. If it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't. So that's that checking the bias and hallucination. Be critical. Filter. There are so many tools out there, so many advertisements. You'll see them all over Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you're on, that are all telling you that they're the best tool for teachers. They're going to save you the most time. But in actual fact, they're all doing the same thing. They're all a chatbot. They're all, or most of them are pulling from similar data. They're just packaging what they're doing in a different way. So find a tool that works with you and just kind of leave everything else out until you're happy with the one that you've got. And then when you want something else, maybe go to a second. Think about how you could integrate it into your maths problems. So something I do is ask Gemini to give me some personalized maths problems. If you are a Magic School user, there is a bot that gives you personalized maths problems. But again, check them. We had one, it was about fractions, and it was essentially asking the students to divide 7 by 3, which you can do, but it doesn't give you a whole number answer. And we were working with whole numbers. So you do have to check them, but think about how you might be able to integrate it in an area at school. Work with a buddy. Share what you do. Like totally find your tribe at school or outside of school within your friend group and just actually share the resources that you make. Help each other out. Ideate. Don't have fixed ideas about what you want. Be open to playing around with your prompts and the outcomes. I'm a terrible person for going down rabbit holes. It will throw me back something and I go, oh, I didn't think about that. And it leads me off on a different track. I have to be very good at keeping myself back on track. Think about the time. It's only ever going to do like 80% of the work. You're always, no matter how good you get at it, you are always going to have to do some of the work yourself. So keep in mind that there is going to be, it might be 80-20, it might be a 60-40, but there is always going to be something that you have to do yourself. And be a lifelong learner. This is not a short journey. AI is here and it's changing rapidly. It's going at such a huge pace that we just have to be prepared to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn alongside our students. But I think as teachers, we probably have a lot more unlearning to do than our students do. So just some tips on kind of where we can get started with that. Alrighty. So now moving along, we've talked about spend time to save time, but these are kind of some of the advertising messages that you will see. And their subliminal message to you is that, hey, if you pay for my tool, it's going to help busy teachers save time. It's going to customize things in seconds. It's going to be like magic. It's going to save time. It's going to fight burnout. There's some really clever marketing going on. And so just be aware that this is pure marketing, and don't jump into paying for these tools from the start, because a lot of these tools started off as free and now they're paid. And the best parts of them are the paid parts. So they want to get you hooked in so that then you'll subscribe to them. So just be a little bit wary that that's what they're trying to do. And this is a great document or a great reading, I think. The title is linked for you. It's written by Leon. I'm not 100% sure how to say his surname. It's Furs, I think. I've attributed him in the speaker notes, but he talks about, like, can AI actually save you time? And I love that he talks about the types of tasks that teachers do, that they're urgent and important, but there's non-urgent and non-important. And it's just a really great, I think, down to earth, basic, let's be real, let's just really stop and think about what this is doing for us. So I've just linked it there for you as something that you might like to read. What can we do with AI? It's limitless, really. We can make personalized messages, make rubrics, create songs, explain something, create a timeline, like whatever we want to do with it, essentially we can do with it. The first place to start, I believe, if you are a one and you haven't really explored AI yet, is start with what you already have. You already have Google Workspace, or you'll already have Microsoft School. And within both of those tools, there is AI. They've both got the Help Me Write. Gemini, if you have the upgraded version, the licensed version, which most New Zealand schools do, you can now create images inside Google Slides. You can remove the background of images inside Google Slides. You can auto-compose your Gmail. So there's a lot that we already have. Lots of New Zealand schools already have Canva. And if you haven't, I highly recommend that you get it. The Canva is free for educators all around the world. A lot of schools have Padlet. I know a lot of schools have Twinkle, and if you have the paid version, it now has an AI function inside of it. And of course, my favorite, Gemini. But then there's a whole lot of others that we could explore, and we'll have a look at some of those. I have highlighted or bolded Microsoft Reading Coach, because I do think even if you're a Google Workspace school, all New Zealand schools also have a Microsoft license. And Microsoft Reading Coach can not only save you a massive amount of time as a teacher, but it's hugely effective for your students. So essentially what happens is you upload the reading passage into Microsoft Reading Coach. The students press record and they record themselves reading it, and it does the analysis in the background for you. So essentially it's doing your probe analysis or your running record analysis for you. It highlights the mispronounced words, it highlights the omissions, it highlights the insertions, it highlights the words that they might not quite have got right, or where they paused and there was no punctuation. So that is one tool I do think really will save you time if you have access to that. It used to be inside Microsoft Teams, and you had to use Microsoft Teams to access Reading Coach, but just recently they've pulled it out of Teams and made it its own standalone tool. So a really good one to have a look at if you want to save some time with your reading testing. I recommend that one. A couple of links for prompting. We've talked about order matters, but let's get into a bit of fun. So before we jump into a bit of fun, I'm just going to pause and just check that there aren't any questions that have come to top of mind for anyone. Ruth, are there any questions top of mind?
Well, there aren't in the chat, but I know I had a question about Microsoft Reading Coach. I was just wondering, that feedback and highlighting you were talking about, does it give it straight to the student?
Yes.
They upload and read?
Yes, it gives it to the student. So the students can also see their own reading patterns as well. But
Cool.
then the teacher has an admin in the dashboard in the background that you see a little bit more information than what the students, but they get that feedback too. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
All right. So if you have access to the slide deck, you will be, I've lost count of what slide number we're on, but there is a image in the middle here that I've got my cursor on, and it's a Padlet, and it's going to take you to a Padlet. And I want you to jump in and have a little bit of fun on this Padlet. So Padlet now has a AI generative tool inside it. So when you click on the plus and you click on the three dots here, there is an option that says I can't draw. And if you click on I can't draw, you can either come in and take my challenge, you can just copy this prompt and fill in your own words, or you might put cute green dragon drinking coffee. Let's see what it gives us. And don't hit clear. I've done this myself many times. Clear clears the text. You have to hit the arrow. And what it will do is it will create that image for you. And again, it will give you a few options of which you might want to choose. Generally gives you 4, and here are my 4. It's obviously very thirsty dragons because they all have 2 cups of coffee with them. But if I want to use it, I just click on it and it's going to drop that image into my Padlet, and then I can write something underneath my Padlet about my green dragon. Look at that beautiful unicorn. Love it. When you're ready, you just click publish. Now you can imagine if you shared a Padlet with your students, how might you use this in your classroom? So what could you do? Padlet is paid and free, but you can have 3 Padlets for free. And so you might set up a Padlet, you set the sharing so that anyone can link it, can access it. And then it could be, it might be that you're doing narrative. It might be that you're doing an explanation. It might be that you're looking into the solar system. It might be that you're looking at people who take action. And they can create their own image. And the really nice thing about this is that you're getting the students to think, lovely, getting the students to think critically about what visually do they want to represent. And they're not going to Google and just Googling an image and taking something off the internet that they don't even have creative copyright license to use. So starting to get them to think about creating their own content and being critical as well. And you can see some really awesome ones coming through here. One of the women who's in our Google Innovator group is a mad West Tigers fan in Australia. And she put a fantastic photo on Twitter last weekend when the Tigers beat the Sharks. And she had a tiger leaping on the water and a shark coming up out of it and the tiger kind of dominating the shark, which was completely AI generated. But you could also then create one yourself, maybe share it with your students and get them to be critical. Like, what's wrong with this? Is this a real picture? Could this happen? And you can see some really great, some really different type of images appearing here from using the Padlet AI generated image. So carry on having a bit of fun with that. If you want to have a little bit of play, I won't close these links down. So if you want to go back in a little bit of time and have a little bit of play, you'll be able to go back and play in there. All right, moving on. I don't really want that to play. I was going to give you 5 minutes, but changed my mind. I've linked on here some other image generators as well. They are all free and paid. Adobe Firefly is awesome. It doesn't do people overly well, but it does do some amazing images. Microsoft Designer, is really great. And what I like about that is you can share your template. So if you've got a prompt, you can highlight different words and then share that template, and people pop in their own words for where you've highlighted. We've talked about Gemini. Poe is more of a collection of bots, but if you were looking to create your own coloring images, Poe is a great one. It's got a great coloring in image generator that all your students might want to use. So these are some other places you can go to generate your own images. And Microsoft Designer has recently brought out their own sticker generation. So I used it down here. This was my sticker I made here using Microsoft Designer. And so you can you can use my template, or you can click on Microsoft Designer sticker and just have a go or have some fun at making your own stickers. Now, where this might be really useful in your classroom is if you create a sticker that's got your persona on it, and then you add your own words to it, like maybe it's loved your focus, or maybe it was creative thinker. You can see I've made one here. We're a PYP school, so we have 10 learner profiles that the students often refer to during the day: being a thinker, being responsible, being a risk taker. And so I've made stickers for each of those. And if you're a Google Workspace school, you can put your stickers into Google Keep. And then we know that Google Keep opens next to our docs and our slides and our sheets. And then we can just drag our sticker across and put it on the student's work. Saves us time in having to write feedback all the time, lets the students know that we've seen their work and we've given them some positive feedback, so we don't always have to give in-depth feedback on everything that we do. So I like putting the stickers into Google Keep and then just dragging them across onto their work. So it can be a fun way. You can also, depending on your school policies and whether the students have access to it, you can get them to create stickers as well. But it's just a relatively new site that they just released not that long ago. Getting the students, while we're on it, talking about our own images. If you are on the slide and you've never seen auto draw before, this can be a great opener for your students in terms of how does AI actually work. So I'm just going to start over, and we've got our toolbar down the side, and there's a black pen. At the moment it's black, but it's got sparkles around it, and it's the auto draw pen. So currently it's blue. I'm going to change it to green, and I'm just going to draw something on my page. I'm drawing with a mouse, don't judge. But you notice at the top that suddenly there are some things that appear at the top. So this is, what does it think I'm drawing? So I wanted to draw a tree. So if I click on that, it turns my image into what I clicked on. I have to hit the select tool and I can move it around my page and I can resize it. And you can't layer, that's the only thing. But not being able to layer is a great computational thinking task, because they have to think about the order of what they want to draw things in. I've got a fill tool, so I can fill it in with a different color. It's not a huge amount of colors, which is great because they don't spend hours deciding on their color. So I'm going to fill that in, and maybe this is going to be brown, but great conversation to have with students about how did it know that I wanted to draw a tree? And you get some really interesting answers back. There's also a free drawer, so I can choose the thickness, I can choose my color, and I can just free draw, so they don't have to use auto draw. And there's text, so there's lots of ways for them to share their thinking. Down the bottom, they can grab the page, just like Google Drawings, and make it bigger or smaller. But how does it know that I wanted to draw a tree? And it's a great conversation to have with your students about data. And it knows that I wanted to draw a tree because in Quick Draw, which is here, there's a game. I don't know if you've played this game. Great time filler. It asks you to draw something. I've got, oh my Lord, 20 seconds to draw a straw, a saw. I don't know if it's going to recognize.
I see line or crown.
Okay, it's not going to get it. I'm not going to, people, please don't judge my drawing. What's it going to say
I
now?
see arrow or
So
grass or stitches.
Keep trying to guess what you want to do. And then it's going to tell me that it didn't get it. But if I come back.
Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
Yeah, we got that. Got it. Okay. If I click on here, the world's largest doodling data set, these are all the things that Quick Draw asks people to draw. And if I click on cow and I select it, it tells me how many cows have been drawn in this game.
Sorry, I couldn't guess it.
Oh, sorry, it's still playing in the background. And if I hover over a cow, you notice that it shows me the algorithm of how that cow was drawn. So when I'm in, sorry, just close these tabs. When I'm in auto draw, it's drawing when I'm on my auto draw pen and I'm drawing something. Let's just see if it's going to pick up the fish in the sky. Yes, look, we've got some fish there. An airplane. Let's say it was an airplane. It's picking up my algorithms and it's matching them to that data set in Quick Draw, and it's throwing me back anything that is remotely connected to the algorithm of the line sequence of what I drew. And so it's a great way of the kids having some fun, but also getting them to start to understand how their computer is actually working. So there's an example there of an activity that we did. So there's lots of different ways that you can use AutoDraw. And if you are someone that uses Book Creator, AutoDraw is inside Book Creator as well. So just kind of thinking, we're just starting to get the kids into the idea about how our computers are working and what's actually going on. Another one that is similar is this musical canvas, and it comes from the Google experiments. And it's a similar thing. So if you want to jump in and have a little play, by all means, jump in. What it does is, again, you draw your own picture, but it makes some music. So it turns what you draw into music. I'll just see if it'll load quickly. Here we go. So it gives us instructions, tells us what to do. We've got our tools down the bottom here. We've got some colors that we can choose from. Let's just stick with a very poorly bad drawn tree. And then I could come in here and maybe make some grass. Oh my goodness. And then I could come back in here maybe, and I could maybe put a sun in the top. And then when I'm ready, I click generate music. Now it gives me feedback on my drawing as well. When I was trying this in the weekend, it told me I needed to fill the page up a bit more. Hence you can see I have actually filled the page up. So it's picked up that my music should be slow and peaceful because it's kind of in the background, looked at what I've drawn and gone, okay, there's not a lot going on there. So it's going to be very calm and very relaxing. It's a simple yet effective depiction of a tree, and it gives me my music. And then if I want to, I can share the link to that music so they can download their own soundtrack. So it kind of takes that drawing to the next step, brings the sound and the music into it as well, but it's also got that AI in the background that's giving them feedback about what they have drawn. So there could be a fun way that you could bring that into your classroom, and there's an example linked there for you. Oops, we don't need to listen to the example. Okay, so there's some fun things that we've done with our students. This is the last thing that we can do with our students, and then I'm going to show you some teacher things very quickly that we could do. Animate from an audio. So we're taking our animation to the next stage, and this time we're adding some video to it. So this is Adobe Express. Again, this part of the tool is free. So what you do is you come in, you choose your character. You can see that there are different categories that you can choose from. So let's go with Alex. We can sit him down there. We can change our background. You can see again, there's different categories. So let's put him in the classroom. And let's just choose, I don't know, this one. There we go. But then when we're ready, we click record. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to record what you say. If you toggle on enhanced speech, it's going to clear out the background. So it's going to remove any distracting noises that might be in the background. It tells you that you can only talk for up to 2 minutes. I love this with the kids because they have to be succinct. And then what it will do is create a video, and it will animate the character to match the kinds of words that you're saying. So for example, if I just play this one.
Using your voice to explain your thinking and to justify your ideas and maybe describe your creativity can be an awesome way for our students to.
So you get the idea. So it's moving the character around and the voice is moving, and that's all being done by AI in the background. So that can be a fun way to get your students to share some learning as well.
Involve.
So sorry, we've listened to you. All right, moving on. It's just some other ways. This is another Google experiment where you can make your own music from different different musicians, Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven, and you can change the instrument and things. This one here, Screwbly, I don't know if you've used that before, but it's super fun. You create the doodle, you stand back and you move around, and it's machine learning. So it's following you, and then you can download it as a GIF at the end. And this last site, they're all linked for you, is the MetaLab one, where you create your drawing, feed it in, and it makes your character move. So lots of different ways that you can combine those and have fun with your students. But what can we do as a teacher? So Diffit is one site that I would recommend as a teacher if you are teaching reading. So what Diffit does, it's free and paid. If you join up, you get a free trial for a certain length of time. What it does is you put some text in, or you can upload, get it to write the text for you. Then it will create the reading passages for you. But the really beautiful thing with Diffit is that when it's created all that, it puts it automatically into a Google slide for you. So it's got I can't think, I think there's over 20 different Google slide templates, Google Doc templates, and Google Form templates. Also feeds into Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Word, and all the templating is done. And you can see that it's taken the text I gave it, it's sectioned it up into activities, it's given them spaces to put their thinking, and it's done all the layout for me. You can choose different grades. So I could take the same task, I could go back into Diffit, and I could say, I want it done, use the same text, but with a 2-year older reading age, or a year less reading age. So you can differentiate the years that you want to do it with. Keep in mind, it is American. So I teach year 6. So if I was creating a resource for an at-level year 6 student, I would choose 5th grade. So choose one level down from the year group that you that it says. So if you're 4th grade, would be for year 5. 3rd grade would be for year 4, if that makes sense. But it's a really good tool that's going to do all that formatting for you straight into a Google or a Microsoft tool at different levels. Another one that here's an image of what it looks like. So you search for your topic, or you can upload your PDF, choose your grade. These are all the kinds of templates that you get. And if you are a Google Classroom user, it'll even push it straight to Google Classroom. So really good for literacy. If you want to put questions with a video, then this is from Magic School. And you give it you say how many questions you want, what type of questions you want, you put the video URL in, and it spits out some questions for you. But also, if you are a Google Classroom user and you have the upgraded Google version, which all of our New Zealand schools should have, in Google Classroom now, you can actually add your own questions to a video. So you might get Magic School to write the questions for you, and then you can just come in and drop them into the video at the points, and then Google Classroom will mark them for you. And you have all those marks in one place. If you don't have this version, if you don't have this option in your Google Classroom, then you need to talk to whoever organizes your Google Workspace and ask them to get your upgraded licenses, because they are free. The Ministry of Education is paying for them for you. So definitely use it. Magic School is one we've talked about before. Lots of teachers use Magic School. Personally, myself, this is just my personal opinion, I find it a bit overwhelming now. It's got I don't know, more than 40 tools in it, but you can favorite them. The thing with Magic School, the free version, you have to copy it yourself, go to a Google Doc and paste it yourself. The automatic copy paste is part of the paid, and you can't change your prompt in the free version. So I can do everything in Gemini for free that Magic School has kind of packaged nicely, but I have to pay to change my prompts. But again, it might be a place for you to start if you just want to do one task, like you just want to do a word problem, or you just want to create a decodable text. So if you're teaching young students it does have a decodable text chatbot. Canva, again, be creative. So it has a magic media button, which is where you will find that create your own images. So put your own text in, green dinosaur eating ice cream by the beach. So this was a probability task that we did. And so we had our continuum, and the students, before it got turned off, used the text to create an image of something that was not possible. So eating ice cream on the beach with a green dinosaur is not possible. What is certain is that on a Friday night, teachers are likely to have a glass of wine. So again, thinking outside the box in terms of how can we get creative and how can we get our kids to be critical thinkers and integrate what we're doing in an authentic way. So probability is a great one for what can, what would, what might, what is likely to happen. All right, we've got 5 minutes left. So Canva, as I've already mentioned, has this amazing list of tools in it. But if you just stick to photos, like I find with our teachers, when they get overwhelmed, we're going, okay, we're just going to focus on what we can do with images in Canva. So you can see here, this is a Canva, has what they call a magic expand. So I created an image, but it didn't fill my space. And I needed my space to be that size because it was going into a slide deck that already had that size. So I used Magic Expand, and you can see how Canva has taken my picture and just expanded it. So it's read the data inside that image and added on either side to make it look like that was the original image. So there's lots of really cool things that we can do just inside Canva. You could probably spend hours on that. But this link here, if Canva is something that you're keen to investigate, this link here will take you to some great educational tutorials on how you might just use Canva. That might be your one tool that you start with. Brisk is another one. It's a Chrome extension. And so you can see down here, it puts it in your bottom right-hand corner. And if you're on a website and you think, oh, this would be a really good reading activity for my students, then it will generate a reading activity. So you can see here, I've used my Brisk Chrome extension. I'm only using the free version. I said, create me a college reading level. And next to it, you can see what it created from that website. So that might be something that you start getting used to. If that's something that you do, if you use resources outside of your text resources and you want to create some new questions and things with them, Brisk might be something that you explore, and the link is down here. Okay, magic to do if you yourself struggle with organizing your thinking, or if you've got a student who organizes your thinking, Goblin Tools has been created specifically to help neurodiverse students or neurodiverse people. You can see it's actually got this chef again. I've got carrots, mushrooms, and chicken. What can I cook for dinner? But it's also got a magic to do. If you give it the list of things that you need to do, it will sort that list of things into categories for you. So if you've got a student or a child who needs a bit of help with organization, this is a completely free tool, this one. So it might be something that you investigate. And again, making it personal. So these are linked, a couple of books. We're a one-to-one iPad school or an Apple Distinguished school. Our year 1s to 3 don't have one-to-one, but our 4 to 6s do. And we were talking about how do we care for our iPad. So Gemini, again, wrote me a story about Sparkle and Flicker. 2 iPads, one that's looked after properly by its students and one that's mistreated. And it wrote this great little fictional story for me. Canva made the pictures for me, and I put it together in Book Creator. And so the kids read the story in Book Creator, and then we talk about it, and then they do their follow-up activity. So these are just both books that I've created for our learning examples in the class that have been completely written by Gemini. Canva's done the images, and Book Creator has packaged it all together for us. So the images are linked. You can go back later on and have a look at them. If you're into coding, some people are starting to look at AI with coding. There are some coding activities that you might want to look at. And that is a whole heap of information thrown at you in 1 hour. And you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, where do I start? My advice is start with one thing. Start with one thing that's going to work for you. Is it going to be using a tool with your students to get them to be creative and critical? Is it going to be starting with something that's going to help you in your planning, maybe a new resource, maybe checking out Gemini, maybe getting used to writing good prompts? Start in one place and just have a go with one thing. So I'm going to stop there and see if Ruth has some questions.
There have only been technical questions in the chat at this point. So much information, Donna. Wonderful. I've got a few new tools to add to my arsenal, so I would just love to take this opportunity to thank you. And I will start sharing screen now. If you could just...
I will stop sharing. Whoops, stop share. There we go.
And then I will start sharing. If Caitlin could post the feedback link, because I'll probably have to jump straight to our next month's webinar. Share screen, correct screen. Let's slideshow it. But actually, no, before that, I'd like to, I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, Donna. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. He mihi nui kia koe mō tō wā. I tēnei te wiki mutunga. It's like, is it last week of term for you?
It is.
Yeah.
Last term. Yes.
So thank you so much.
Well, if anyone's got any questions, my email's on the slide deck. Feel free to get in touch.
Ka pai. And next month we have another amazing presenter, Nan and Amy, or presenters, coming to talk to us about kōrero korowai, and the blend of traditional and contemporary. So let's close with a karakia whakamutunga and get ready for our 1 o'clock. Kia mātou katoa, kua mutu mātou I a mātou mahi, I a mātou kaupapa hoki. Arahina mātou, kia kawe mātou I a mātou haipapa. Kia whakatapua mātou ki ngā kaupapa me ngā mea e whakapono. Manaaki tia mai mātou.